and welcome everyone back to another great edition of Maxon TV. I have an esteemed guest, Angie Dobransky. She's a speaker, trainer, and success coach. Angie, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thanks, Max. I'm really excited to be here.
Likewise. Anyone from Maryland is a friend of mine. Used to spend my summers there all the time. So to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do now and a little bit more about your business?
So, I call myself a success coach. And what that really is, I work with people, mostly business owners and executives, on maximizing their potential, being everything they want to be, and usually through building their business. So I really help people get in touch with what is your vision for your life and your business, what is your dream? And then I help them figure out a plan to get there, and I basically support them along the way. I really do think of myself as a partner with my clients in their success.
Right. So in your previous career, you were in the jewelry business a little bit, right? You were a sales manager for Liz Claiborne. And by the way, I know Liz Claiborne very well. I've seen their brand all over, especially in Miami for sure. When I used to walk into department stores, of course.
Right.
By the way, Liz Claiborne, they used to sell men's shirts as well, right?
They did. We were in every single area of the department store. So we had every area covered.
I actually have pants in my closet that are Claiborne, and
That's
I love
fantastic.
them. So I know Claiborne. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience there? What did you do for Liz Claiborne?
Well, I started out of college in fashion. I started as a buyer in a department store, which is kind of where everybody starts. And then I got recruited first to Monet Jewelry and then Liz Claiborne. I have to say it was really exciting because you're the ones that are sort of choosing the assortment. You work with the people that make the jewelry, and you work with the department stores to really choose the assortment that we're going to put out there for the world to wear. It's a very exciting career. I spent about 20 years in fashion.
Wow.
Working a lot in New York while living in Maryland. So I did a lot of commuting and a lot of virtual work back in the day. So this new virtual world is very comfortable for me, actually.
Really? So the transition for you was like seamless, essentially.
I was 70% virtual when the pandemic hit. So to go to 100% was easy peasy. And honestly, I'm never leaving the house again. So,
Okay, then. Yeah, that's awesome. Listen, to spend 20 years at any industry or any place is remarkable because I think nowadays the average tenure in any business is probably 4 years.
The only time, it's funny, I could only hold the same job for about 5 years before I would start to get bored with it. But, you can stay in an industry if you move up through it, right? So I started in the store, and then I was an assistant buyer, and then a buyer, and then a vendor, so I had multiple jobs in that 20-year career. But it's funny, I remember when I left my first job, and my father was horrified because in his experience, you graduated, well, in his case, high school, and then you got a job and you worked there till you're retired. And I back then was like, Dad, I don't think that's the model anymore. Right. And now we're all living in a model where, I think I saw a stat, the average person has 3 or 4 different careers in their lifetime.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir here. I'm a person though, who I feel like I have to work for myself. Working for somebody else just never worked for me. So right now you essentially go into businesses, teach them, coach them as to how to actually get to that next level that they all want to get to. So I assume you learned a lot from your career growing up, obviously Liz Claiborne. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
So when I first started my coaching business, I was very much as just a straightforward strategic business coach. I had come out of big business. I worked for Liz Claiborne. I worked for a big department store. I had a business degree. I had a lot of real world business experience. And so in the beginning, I was really teaching small business owners how to run a business. And I was actually really surprised to discover in the beginning that they didn't know how, right? They were good at what they did, but that didn't mean they knew how to run a business. And I already told you I can only do the same thing for about 5 years. So while that was incredibly rewarding, I did start to get a little bored with just the straightforward coaching on what you need to do in your business. And what I started to realize was that as people grew their businesses, they needed to grow themselves. And I started doing a lot of work in the area of becoming, right? Like, how do you become the business owner who now runs a $10 million company when, 10 years ago you were in your basement as a single worker, right? Or how do you grow your team? So I do a lot of work now in developing the people, as well as talking strategy with them and, making sure that the business is moving in the direction they want it to move. Most of my clients are building something, it's not just a living. they're creating something that, in many cases they hope outlives them.
Is it will you work with any business? Like if you see a business and you're just like, this doesn't make any sense, like I cannot see this growing, or could you even take a business like that and grow it further?
So I do work with any business, right? I know there's no business that I think I can't help. I mean, that being said, there are businesses that are so underwater that the pressures are incredible. But I'm honest with my clients, to tell you the truth. I mean, I've had people come to me and say, I've got this great business idea. And I'll say to them, I don't understand how that makes money. And I'll start asking them questions like, who is your audience? Who is this? And, sometimes we realize, what, you've got a great little niche business that we could grow. And sometimes we figure out that idea really won't make them money. And then they have to figure out where to go from there. So I'll help anybody grow their business, but I'm always real honest with them about where the potential is. And if I don't see it, I don't turn it off, because, anything's possible, but I try to bring it out of them. Where is the real potential, so we can make sure it's really there?
Right. I mean, obviously, I think that what makes you really successful, because listen, if a business is treading water essentially, and you're telling them that, no, I think you guys are doing a good job. I mean, obviously it does everyone a disservice, right?
Right. And there are coaches like that. I mean, I've come across them that no matter what people are doing, their coach, they think they're supposed to encourage them. And I mean, I'm certainly encourage my clients, but a good coach sends you in the direction that's going to make you hit your goals. They don't just encourage you when your ideas are not fully thought out.
It's like going to a doctor, right? You expect the doctor to be the expert and to kind of tell you what to do, essentially, in a way. I think, is that the same thing as a coach, essentially? I mean, you guys have been there, done that, so you can strategically tell them, I think this is what you need to do.
Sort of. I mean, I think it's important if you're as a coach that you have some expertise in the area that you coach in, right? So that, I do know how to run a business and I can guide them in that direction, but it's also bringing it out of them. It's, what do you really want here? So where, sometimes the doctor is like, this is my vision for you. I am more like, what is your vision? Let me help you find your vision, and let's see if we can make that happen. And every once in a while, we have to check in. I mean, I have clients that have grown their businesses enormously, and we've had check-in moments where I've said, is this what you really want? Right? You're working 80 hours a week right now, right? We're pushing it really hard. The pressure's on. Is it what you really want? Let's make sure. And, usually at that point it's yes, but if it's no, then we step back too. So I do try to bring out what they really want. Because, sometimes, have you ever had something where you wanted something and then when you got it, you realize you didn't really like it?
100%.
Yeah, that can happen too. Right. And so I think the coach helps you deal with that and helps you to sometimes say, hey, it's okay if you went in this direction and you didn't really like that, we'll just do something else.
Right. 100%. Can you give us maybe one or two of your best examples as to when you stepped in as their coach and how you were able to grow it and what you were able to grow it to?
I have a funny example. I've worked with this particular client for a long time. And when I first worked with them, their vision was that they would have to work until the day they died, because they would never have any money to retire. And at the time, I want to say they were making about $60,000 a year. And we started working on fixing some things in their business and along the way. But I've worked with them for a long time, and they do a couple $1 million a year in volume now, and the owner makes a lot of money and is trying to figure out how to retire, right? So her view is totally different. But what she said to me, she said, what changed it all for me was that you said to me one day, I don't know why you see yourself as a small business owner. You're a businesswoman. Start thinking about yourself that way. And she said that little shift, just from, wait a minute, I'm a businesswoman, I need to operate like a businesswoman, changed the way she ran her business. So sometimes it's small little things.
Yeah, there was one thing I did learn. I'm more of a experienced type of person rather than just learning it in school or whatever. But the first thing I did learn in business school was, which actually was remarkable. You can tell me, I want to get your take on it, but they did a little experiment for kids in like elementary school, whatever. And every school, apparently they have, the smart kids, the middle kids, and like what we call the dumb kids. I'm sorry to say, whatever. So they wanted to see that if a teacher treats someone a certain way, will that affect the result of some? Have you heard of this?
No, but it makes sense to me, and I've seen it in real live action too.
Yeah, so essentially, like the smart kids, they're doing so well because every time the teacher asks a question, their hands are raised. The teacher expects more out of them, essentially. So the dumb kids, quote unquote, they never expect anything out of themselves. So essentially they become dumb. However, they flipped the script. The teacher then started treating the dumb kids as the smart kids and the smart kids as the dumb kids. And the result was the dumb kids became the smart kids and the smart kids became the dumb kids. Do you see it the same way in business as well?
Yeah, we are what we label ourselves and what we allow other people to label us. When you use that teacher example, it's funny. My mother was a teacher, and I saw an incident in her school where a kid who I happen to know the kid, because I knew the family, sort of got labeled as a troublemaker in like the maybe second or third grade, and really then had trouble for the rest of elementary school. And I remember talking to the parents and saying, I'm thinking, because I kind of knew that I knew that the teachers had labeled them this way. The parents didn't necessarily know that, right? And I remember saying to the parents, hey, I think it'll get better when he goes to middle school, right? Let's just see what happens. And it did. It was like, and I just in my head, because I never said anything, because it'd be a difficult conversation to say the teachers have done your kid a disservice because they inadvertently labeled him in a way. But that is what happened. We become how we think of ourselves. If you think of yourself as a small business owner, you'll always be a small business owner. If you think of yourself as a business person, that's how you become.
It's actually really funny you say that. I was also labeled as my twin brother as troublemakers because we were both kicked out of preschool.
Oh my goodness!
I kid you not.
You were a troublemaker at 4, right?
Right. I'm sorry you can't control 4-year-old. We used to lock the teachers outside the classroom. We ran in the parking lot. I mean, but I was 4. What do you want from me?
Right.
What else is there to do? So you run RAD. It's RAD Strategic Partners. Strategic Partners, correct?
Yes. RAD is because everything is radical in my world.
There we go. And so you came out with the Radical Success System. Why don't you tell us more about that?
So the Radical Success System is it's a combination of everything I've learned, but it's also the way that I live my life. And it is this idea that, you can have, be, and do anything you want in your life, regardless of what society's taught you or what you think. If you really decide what you want, then there is a system for getting it. And that's what my Radical System's all about. And it's really about, it's the inner work of understanding what you want and why you're setting these goals, and then the outer work of actually creating plans and taking the steps to make them happen. But the Radical Success System is teaching people how to live a very intentional life and achieve every goal they ever set for themselves, the ones that they really want. Because we set goals we don't really want, and those are the ones we don't achieve.
Right. So anything specific when you go into a business for the first time, is there anything that you do, the very first thing that you do, you just sit down and just talk about their strategy as to what they want to accomplish in life?
Yeah, in the beginning, I usually sit down and say, just tell me about your business, right? Where are you? Where did it come from? All that kind of stuff. And where do you right now see it going, right? Because usually they've hired me because they've got something in mind. And then I start saying, and then what, right? And then what's your legacy, right? I start asking those harder questions, like, well, what do you want your whole life to look like, and does this support it? And that sounds like a crazy long conversation, but it's not as long as it sounds. And then once I sort of understand, what are you trying to build, right? And why are you trying to build it? And how does this work? And how does it work within your life? Then we set about, sort of figuring out, okay, where are you strong? Where are you weak? What do we need to work on? More strategic kind of stuff. And along the way, as I get to know the players and the team, we start to see, who can we, because we're usually developing the team as well if we're growing a business. So, we start to identify, who do we think we can develop, and teaching them how to develop their team is actually a lot of the work that I do.
Right. Is there anybody that you've worked with that from your initial, interaction, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be brutal, and then at the end of the day ended up becoming one of your biggest success stories?
There have been clients that I, in all honesty, that I've gone out and met with and thought, I just think they're a little crazy, right? Right? I'm just not sure about this, but that's your initial meeting, and I try to be judgment free. So you go in because they have some just off the wall idea that you've never heard of or approach to something. But then you get to know them and you figure out that they've actually identified, so they see something that the rest of us don't see, right? And they're able to fulfill that niche. I mean, it's funny. Like, I worked with a restaurateur one time who had this incredible niche doing basically just breakfast, right? And he made a ton of money, like way more money than the guy who's, the 5-star restaurant serving, lunch and dinner every night, because all he did was breakfast. And there's a lot of money in breakfast. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So what's the largest company you've ever worked with as far as maybe revenue or employees?
My largest current client is over $1 billion company. So
Get the hell out of
yeah,
here.
but that's not normal. But my current largest client that I just invoiced them today, in fact, is over $1 billion company. But my nice, like bigger size company that I like to really work with and get in there and make a lot of difference with the team is about 250 to 500 employees. I have many companies that I've taken from, say, when I started working with them, they had 5 or 6 employees, and now they have, 30 to 50 employees, right? So I'm pretty good at taking a company there. And I'm also really good at taking a company who's, say, now over 100 employees, because they've moved into a different realm of employee engagement and really teaching them how to manage a team.
Got you. So to recap, the core company that you would want to, that's like your core competency to start working for and to get them to a certain level is what again? I'm sorry.
I like to take a company when they have like a dozen employees and grow them up. That's my favorite type of like success story growth client. I have real strength in sitting in a company that's got 250 to 500 employees and helping them develop their team. So that company's already grown, right? But now they're kind of stuck because their team hasn't grown. And that's when I usually go in and work with the executive team. And that really takes them to a new level because they figured out the business part and now they just have to get the people part right.
That's amazing. And so what's one lesson I guess you can teach as far as how to build those teams?
Hire to complement yourself first, right? So if you're building out your team, think of it as a circle, right? So people tend to hire people like them, which is not right. So hire for your weaknesses first, right? Hire to round out. And then as you hire into the next level, always look for people that you think can grow within your company. A lot of times we hire people who can just do the task at hand because we need them. But if you hire people more for their attitude and their ability to grow, they'll be better, more engaged employees that will grow with you and take your company further.
Do you think the current way to interview and to find talent is the correct way of doing things, or is there a better way?
There has to be a better way, but I don't know what it is. Because honestly, like it's I have done so much behind the scenes, interviewing and resume sifting even when I was in the corporate world and with my clients now. And it's just a crapshoot. Honestly, it's like, if you know somebody that can get you referred in, that's great, right? So that, and then it's like nobody even checks your background, which is ridiculous, right? Right? But otherwise, if, companies are like, putting an ad out there in the ether space and then sorting through, hundreds or thousands of resumes, just grabbing the first couple that caught their eye because they're overwhelmed, and then doing 1 or 2 interviews to decide if they're the right person. It's really hard to find the right match in the beginning.
Let's move on a little bit. You are also an author. You co-author the book Life Lessons in Success. Why don't you tell us about how you became an author and what got you to start in the first place?
So I've actually apparently had a dream like 15 years to write a book, by the way, which somebody reminded me, because it was one of those little goals I set on the shelf, but they always come true. But I did a training program, a year-long live training program with Canfield, just part of my own, personal skill development. And it was just a really powerful experience. We spent a lot of time together with people around the world. We did a lot of storytelling, a lot of sharing with each other. And at the end of the training, somebody was like, wow, this is amazing. We should each write a book about it. And I said, I think it'd be a lot easier if we just all write a chapter. We could each share one of our stories. And I think it'd be an amazing book. And so 35 other people said, okay, I'm in. And I said, okay, I'll make it happen. And, I have to tell you, from a success lesson perspective, I have a book that I wrote 14 years ago that's 95% done, still in the 95% done strategy, right? That I let myself off the hook. But when 35 people signed up with me, like I couldn't let them off I couldn't let them down, right? So trust me, there were moments I wanted to quit because it was not easy to do a compilation project like that, particularly because I was kind of, trying to lead the group through it. But I couldn't let them off the hook. So because of them, my dream came true, and my book, which I have right here,
nice,
is came out in March, and the reviews were great, and I'm very proud of it.
Yes, we will be leaving a link down below as well. I actually did check out your book on Amazon, and the fact that you just published it, I also see like you do sell a number of books. From what I'm seeing, it's doing extremely well. So congratulations on that. That's very hard to do.
I do know how to market, and I've never marketed a book before. And it was funny because I would tell everybody, guys, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I do know marketing in general. So let's just, I had a consultant that gave me some book tips, and I took my knowledge and created a marketing plan, and we followed it, and it sold, and it's a good product. So once you get it, you get those initial sales out, you can keep it going. So I am proud of the work we did. So
listen, I've sold on Amazon before. I know how hard it is, especially in the book space. It's like almost impossible. The fact that you've done it and got to that level so fast is incredible. So again, congratulations. That's no easy feat.
Thank you. And a little thing I picked up, the average, if you take, all books sold by all authors, the average author sells 400 books in their lifetime.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
we sold more than that the first week, but that's the average author sells 400 books in their lifetime.
Yep. Crazy. I did not know that. That's insane.
It's a shocking statistic.
Oh yeah, for sure. You mentioned Jack Canfield, so New York Times best-selling author. So you know him personally, you're saying?
Yeah, it's funny. I first met him a really long time ago when I owned a business coaching franchise. He was a speaker at our conference. That would be, oh my gosh, maybe 14 years ago at this point. And it's real funny because he was a great speaker. I'd never really come across him before. I had his book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, but I hadn't read it. Somebody gave it to me. And so I saw him speak, and we were blown away. And I bought a bunch of his books, and I came home and read Chicken Soup for the Soul and was like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. And then I kind of forgot about him, to tell you the truth. And maybe 7 years later, he came to DC doing this one-day event. And I said to my friends and my husband, oh, we should go to this. He was great. And I tell you, I was watching him do his one-day thing, and I was realizing I had learned a whole ton from him that day 7 years before, because I was using a lot of it. It was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize all this stuff I was doing. I learned from Jack. So then I started, I've done several live events with him. I've done his, I'm a certified trainer. Yes, he wrote the foreword for my book. He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. And so what was the main lessons that maybe you learned from him?
Ask for what you want, right? Like, don't be intimidated by who people are. Like, don't think you're not good enough to ask somebody else for what you want. I mean, I asked Jack Canfield to write the foreword for my book. He is like the best-selling author of all time in nonfiction, I think. J.K. Rowling sold a ton, but he sold 600 million books or something.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah, that's all. Just 600 million, right? And I asked him to write the foreword, and he was delighted to do it, right? And then I reached out to a couple other impressive people I know, and I was like, hey, I wrote this book. Would you endorse it for me? And they wrote endorsements. And, I don't think before Jack, I would not have asked the people I asked for a favor.
That's incredible, because how many people do I come in contact with that, everyone's got a great idea, or everyone wants to ask someone about that, and they're like, well, they're never going to answer. They're never going to do it. I'm like, how do you know that?
Right. It's true. Like, people reach out to me. I'll help anybody. I'll grant any favor that I can. I have boundaries and stuff, but trust me, I'm trying to help people and change the world. If people ask me for help and I can help them, I will. And yet they're still surprised when they're like, oh, I'm so surprised you did that for me. And I'm like, if you just want something, just ask. You never know.
Yeah. As you do in your professional career, you've helped hundreds of businesses, correct?
Yeah.
Hundreds of businesses go from whatever level they were doing to becoming millionaires, essentially.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Kind of fun. It sounds like a freaking blast.
I tell you, I was looking at a client. We were looking at her numbers and looking at all the money she pulled out of her business in the last few years. And I said something like, I go, wow, so you pulled millions of dollars out of your business. And she's just like, that's amazing. And I just went, you're welcome. And she was like, thank you. Super cool.
That must feel good. I feel like there's no better feeling than that.
That's why I still coach. 15 years in coaching really at this point. And it's amazing, truly. You get to live every day these amazing successes because of the people you help.
100%. So because you work with so many entrepreneurs, why don't we get final thoughts as to what would be your one message, I guess, if you were to give, if an aspiring entrepreneur who I guess just can't take that next step to even start or get to that next level, what would you tell them?
Entrepreneurship brings freedom, freedom that you can't get any other way. And once you experience it, it's hard to walk away from it. But what you really get with entrepreneurship is freedom of creativity and freedom of time and freedom of location. And you have to be willing to let go of what you think is a safe space to gain that freedom. And then just take the leap and do it. But don't do it stupidly. Like talk to advisors, read books, right? Hire a lawyer, an accountant. Those are important things. I think a business coach is really important too. But hire the accountant and the lawyer before you hire the coach.
Right. And if you are hiring a coach, you should call Angie.
You should call me. You should go to my website, book a 30-minute call. Anybody can do it anytime. My calendar's there. Again, I am just trying to help people.
Definitely. And so if someone were to want to contact you, besides through the website, is there any other way of doing it?
So I'm all over all the social channels where everybody is. My name is my name, Angie Dobransky. You'll find me everywhere under that. You can go to the website. You can book a call. That is the best way to do it. You can send me an email, which again is my name, Angie Dobransky @radstrategic.com.
I also feel like you're one of the few people left to actually answer phone calls as well.
I do answer phone calls. And you know what else I do is I call people. And it's really funny. Yeah, and it's a pandemic.
I knew it.
In the pandemic, I started calling people and sending packages and letters in the mail.
Look at you. I knew it. I just got that sense.
It blows people away. Every time I call somebody just to check in, they're like, I'm so excited you called me. And I'm like, I was just calling to see how you were doing. It's a wonderful thing.
That's amazing. Anyways, Angie, thank you so much for coming on. I learned a ton personally. I'm sure everyone else has as well. And again, if you want to reach out, I'll be leaving links below. Again, Angie, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Max. It was great.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
Okay.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.